Let's do it. KD told the Nets owner Joe Tsai it's either him or Sean Marks and Steve Nash.
Mm-hmm.
Tsai a little later tweeted his support for Marks and Nash.
Yep.
You said that KD managed to checkmate a billionaire.
Yeah.
But what exactly would make KD happy?
He got traded.
Yeah.
I don't know. And the point that I was making was this. I don't know that Kevin Durant actually wants these guys fired. He's a smart guy. If he wanted these guys fired, the way to go about that is back in July, instead of demanding a trade, go to Joe Tsai and say, hey, fire them or I will demand a trade and keep that private.
Right.
Instead, he has gone about it in a way that leads me to believe he asked for something that he knows he's not going to get. Asking for a head coach to be fired is not unprecedented, but it is still quite rare. I mean, Magic Johnson did it 40 years ago. We still remember it. Dwight Howard did it. We remember the Stan Van Gundy press conference. There were rumblings that LeBron was implying it about Spoelstra and then just outright did it with David Blatt. But it is very rare that a superstar flatly says fire the coach. It is damn near unprecedented that a superstar says fire the coach and the GM.
Right.
And here's the other part of it. Does it and then clearly leaks it. His people leak it to Shams. So why do they do that? Because it makes bringing him back untenable.
Right.
Unless you're going to
wants
be like,
to make it
okay,
uncomfortable for folks.
fire him, which Joe Tsai is not going to do, and Tsai made it clear he's not going to do. How can you ask Steve Nash to coach him now?
Right.
And I think Kevin Durant knows that. So I think KD was just escalating the situation to a place where bringing him back is untenable because there were some feelings across the league. They're not going to trade him. So what will make him happy? Again, I don't know that KD's search for happiness seems to be an evaporating goal line for him or goalpost. But I think in the moment, what he would say would make him happy would be if they traded him. And there has been the Boston trade that's been out there. The New York Daily News just day before yesterday put out almost player for player the exact trade I proposed. Brandon Ingram, Herb Jones. I said Larry Nance. I think he said in the article Devontae Graham. Doesn't matter. Same thing. Jose Alvarado was in it. And then all the draft picks. That's the trade that I think makes the most sense. You have to sell KD on the New Orleans piece of it because here's the other thing that I've heard people speculate. Well, you piss off Joe Tsai. What if he sends you to Sacramento? What if he sends you somewhere you don't want to be? And people are operating under the foolish assumption that any organization in the league would benefit or want to have an unhappy, angry Kevin Durant.
Right.
You're not going to trade for KD unless he says, I want to be there.
Right.
Because the team that just traded him has him under contract and would only be trading him because he said, I don't want to be there. And so I think the trade is going to happen. I think it's going to happen before the season begins. Will it happen before training camp? I don't know. But I do think it's going to happen. All right, we're still talking Durant, I think.
Or KD. KD's about to be on his fourth team in 7 years.
Yeah.
His legacy will be ruining the Nets and joining the best team ever, the Warriors. As a basketball historian, will people remember KD for his play or will they remember him for his business decisions?
Oh, I think his play. I think that the Warriors piece of it will, that part, I know people like to say, oh, history doesn't remember the details. There are certain details history does remember, okay? The people know when we talk about, for instance, a player not of KD's caliber, but a great player, Clyde Drexler, that yes, Clyde won his ring, and yes, he was a key piece of a championship team, but he did it on the defending champion Houston Rockets. People know that. People, when they talk about Bill Walton, they remember, he's a two-time champion. But people know, if you know anything about Bill Walton, there is one championship that he was the driving force behind with the Blazers in 77. And then there was the other championship where he was the sixth man with the Celtics in 86. They don't look at them exactly the same. Just like people would take Shaq and Kobe. People know that Shaq won 4 rings, and the last of which, he was still a very good player, but D. Wade was the driving force. And they know Kobe won 5 rings, 4 of which he was a huge part of. The first one, not quite so much. But they also know that the last 2 were his rings. So it will always be a part of Durant's legacy that let me add this, especially if he doesn't win another title, that the 2 titles he won was alongside Steph Curry. Yes, he was the finals MVP. He was the best player on the Warriors in those series, but it was with the Warriors, who won a title before he got there, had the 73 wins before he got there, and then the real kind of knife to the back, won a title after he left, right? So that is going to be part of the story. I do not think this Nets tenure is going to be a big part of his story. I think when people talk about Kevin Durant, they're going to talk about how brilliant he was immediately, how he was in the NBA Finals at 22 years old with the Thunder, about how he was in the conference finals or further every year that he was healthy and his team was healthy, how he then went to the Warriors and was the final piece of what many people believe to be the best team ever. And then I think they're going to talk about whatever this next and most likely last chapter is. I think they will kind of gloss over. Then after leaving the Warriors, missed a year with the Achilles, played with the Nets for a couple of years. That team was a mess. Kyrie, that will be more. The Nets tenure will be a much bigger part of Kyrie's story than Kevin Durant's story, especially because Durant, in his first year his first healthy year with the Nets, not this past season, but the season before, was phenomenal in that series against Milwaukee. And what people will remember, I believe, from the Nets part of his career was swept by the Celtics. What they'll remember is the foot on the line Game 7. I think people will remember how brilliant he was in Game 5 against Milwaukee, and then the foot on the line, what people thought was the game-winning 3 to beat Giannis, and instead foot on the line, which as Giannis's legend continues to grow, that actually becomes not a knock on Durant, but almost a boon for Durant. I just want to remind people real quick, I'm going to pull it up before we move on, how unbelievable he was in that series. He ran out of gas in overtime of Game 7, so be it. But in that series, I've got it right here. The 2021 Eastern Conference semifinals, Kevin Durant averaged 35 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists on 50% shooting. And if you really go to, because if you remember that they had Kyrie for the first 4 games and then Kyrie got hurt. Those final 3 games of that series, he was good the first 3, scored at least 28 in the first 4, I should say, scored 28, 29, 30, and 32. In the final 3 games of that series, Game 5, he played all 48 minutes. It's the best game of his career. He had 49, 17, 10, 3, and 2, playing all 48 minutes. Game 6, that was the one in Milwaukee where they got blown out. He had 32, 11, and 3. And then Game 7 at home, he played all 53 minutes and had 48, 9, and 6. And then in overtime, ran out of gas, which is why the field goal percentage got hurt. But that Game 5, 49, 17, and 10, with a compromised James Harden, no Kyrie. And by the way, those 49 points on 16 of 23 shooting, on 70%, it's the best game he's ever played. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.